Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Rather shockingly, something actually good happened in Parliament a couple days ago. The Conservatives ended up getting a win by having other opposition parties back them on forcing Mark Carney's Liberals to interview new prospects for the Parliamentary Budget Officer in front of a committee. This is in response to Carney's Liberals trying to very quickly replace the interim PBO, Jason Jocks, with a Liberal loyalist. Now, he is just the interim, and I know some people have pointed out, oh, it's no big deal. They're trying to replace Jason Jocks. He's the interim. He's meant to be replaced. The interim is supposed to have a term of 6 months. It gives you a long period of time to find the new permanent parliamentary budget officer, but after just 2 months, because he was appointed in mid September, they are already trying to get rid of him because they don't like that he tells the truth. He is very sharp in his criticisms of the Liberal government spending and how much debt servicing costs are starting to be of our yearly budget. You could say, well, that sounds partisan. He shouldn't be criticizing. Actually, he should. It's a watchdog position. The person who is the PBO is meant to look at the balance sheet of the government and say, hey, guys, this keeps getting worse every single year. And like Jason Jock said, this is becoming unsustainable. He also called their spending shocking and stupefying, which just makes me like him more. But the Liberals clearly didn't like it. But now we have all the other parties basically saying, it doesn't matter if you like it or you don't like it, you're going to have to interview your new prospects for the PBO in front of us so we can weed out if this person is actually going to hold you accountable or not. So presumably a conservative can ask the questions to the PBO, what do you think about the current budget? Do you think this level of spending is appropriate? How bad is this accumulation of debt for our next, 10 years? Is this going to be something that's going to hold back our economic growth in the future? That's something that we should be able to ask, because if they can't answer that with an objective, correct answer that yes, the amount of debt is actually getting quite bad, then they should not be the PBO. This is not a position for somebody to give Mark Carney a back massage. But before we get into the article I wanted to read, I just want to remind you guys, hey, if you like the show, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are not yet a subscriber, and then, of course, leave a comment on what you think. Later on, I actually want to also get into a video from one of the federal NDP leadership candidates, because somebody I know dunked on them extremely hard for their anti-oil and gas position. But here, let's get into this article from the CBC, and it says House Committee asks to interview short list of budget watchdog candidates. Interim PBO has questioned sustainability of government finances. So the article opens up saying a committee of MPs is asking the government for a short list of candidates as it seeks to find a new permanent parliamentary budget officer after the interim fiscal watchdog raised concerns about Canada's finances. A motion adopted at the House Government Operations Committee on Thursday is also requesting that a subcommittee be allowed to interview the potential candidates behind closed doors and make recommendations to the government who should be selected for the permanent position. Quote, I believe there needs to be a PBO appointed to a full-time position who is vetted by parliamentarians, said Conservative MP Kelly Block, who moved the motion. The motion was adopted with Conservatives and Bloc members voting in favor, while the Liberals voted against. That's my mistake. Yeah, there actually isn't any NDP on the committees because they aren't an official party. So it's Liberals, Conservatives, and Bloc. But because the Liberals are only a minority government, that means that the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois can actually overrule them in many of these committees. Reading on, it says the PBO is a nonpartisan office of Parliament providing independent economic and fiscal analysis to the Senate and the House of Commons. As it stands, the PBO is appointed by the government after conducting consultations with the leaders of recognized parties and groups in both houses of Parliament, according to the Parliament of Canada Act. The appointment must also be approved by both chambers. Block said the interview process she proposed should be considered part of the consultation process outlined in the Act. Thursday's motion adopted in the wake of the government appointing Jason Jocks to the PBO role on an interim basis earlier this fall. In one of its first committee appearances in September, Jocks criticized the government spending as stupefying, shocking, and unsustainable. Last week, in the wake of the Liberal government releasing its budget, Jocks released a new report that slightly contrasted his earlier remarks. He said that while the government is unlikely to meet its deficit targets, the federal finances are sustainable over the long term. No, he actually did not say that, and this is where the CBC is being the CBC. In his own report, he said that the fiscal anchors that the Liberals have put in place in order to meet their targets only have a 7.5% chance of actually holding. Yes, he's saying that yes, we're not going to collapse in the short run here, but overall, the debt accumulation is still extremely bad. The idea, his whole point about it being unsustainable is that the idea that the Liberal plans are very unlikely to actually hold. Yes, the Liberals will always have some sort of a chart showing the debt going down, and Jason Jocks can confirm if you actually stick to that, if you stick from going from a $78 billion deficit to 65 to 60 to 55 to 40, yeah, technically it becomes sustainable. He also said that the chances that the fiscal anchors hold to the point where you can have that gradual reduction in deficits over time is wrong. He also called out the Liberals for greatly miscategorizing a lot of the spending in its budget. $94 billion in the budget was miscategorized in a way that he made it very clear it's pretty hard to have done that by accident. They basically made it so that a bunch of operating spending was categorized as infrastructure spending. It very clearly was, at least from his perspective, operation spending, because the Liberals were trying to market the idea that the deficit's just because we have so much in infrastructure and we're investing in the economy. And Jason Jocks pointed out a lot of that is just standard operating expenses that may have a slight vague tie to infrastructure, but these are not new infrastructure investments overall. Overall, I think the infrastructure investments in the budget were like 215 billion, but then you had to remove 94 billion, and it's not nearly as much as the Liberals would make it out to be. And in fact, even if you took out all the infrastructure spending, the new infrastructure spending, they would still be in a deficit with just the operating spending alone. That's the problem. This government is so spendthrift, despite what Carney says, that even if you took all the investments out, we are still spending too much. Yes, the investments are still spending, and I find that so obnoxious. But even if I was to follow the logic of Carney, no, he's not spending less and investing more. He's spending more and investing more. He's just spending more. That's all that is happening here. And it said, going forward, it says, during Thursday's committee meeting, Conservative MP Tamara Jensen asked Jocks about the wording in the job posting and suggested the government wants someone who might be less keen to criticize its fiscal position. Quote, it kind of sounds like they just want to make sure somebody's going to keep things on the down low, unquote, Jensen said. Jocks disagreed with her assessment. He said his interpretation of the wording applies to meetings he would have with all parliamentarians. But most of the meetings are in private with their staff, and none of that information is divulged with other parliamentarians. And that's important, and you need someone who can be discreet, not share that information. Although it's pretty obvious that Jacques would, of course, say that because he's not going to be the type of guy to just go out and just start slamming them on like, oh, yes, they're very corrupt. Oh, yes, they have too many closed door meetings. He's just focused on the numbers, which I like about him. But again, I think that he also he's going to have to smooth things out because I actually heard that he might go for the permanent position, which I would fully support him taking because the PBO should be as honest as humanly possible. It should be someone who all they care about is getting the numbers right. But now let's jump into this little video that NDP leadership candidate Avi Lewis posted just yesterday or just this morning. And he says, my position is clear. I am unequivocally opposed to any new fossil fuel development, including LNG. Industry and government have spent years selling the lie that natural gas is a bridge to the future. The bridge is burning. We must have the courage to say this to every government of any stripe. If you're building a new pipeline or fossil fuel infrastructure, this shall not pass. Is he making a Lord of the Rings reference? But regardless, this man is delusional, except he's in the top 3 people likely to become the new liberal leader. At the very least, he's going to have a king-making role between either if Rob Ashton becomes the leader or if Heather McPherson, because it's pretty much Heather McPherson, Rob Ashton, and Avi Lewis. Now, if you're a conservative, you probably want Heather McPherson to win. She's not as crazy as Avi Lewis on stuff like this. At the same time, that she's not like Rob Ashton's still basically a communist. But Rob Ashton uses a lot of more working class language. He comes across more working class. And I could actually see that ripping some votes in the Windsor type areas back over to the NDP from the Conservatives. Heather McPherson doesn't bring any of the people who started voting Conservative in this last election who used to vote NDP, but she will rip back Liberals who voted for the Liberal Party this last election, but previously were voting for the NDP. Well, let's take a look at this video quickly.
When it comes to the question of LNG, I want to be really clear. I'm a British Columbian NDPer, and I am very grateful for our NDP government in this province. But when it comes to LNG, so many of us are heartbroken, we are utterly mystified, and we are frankly enraged at the fact that our NDP government is going full bore on this fossil fuel. The Xela Sims project, re-announced by Carney this week, should not proceed, in my view. Absolutely not. It's US owned and operated. The backers of it are Trumpian billionaire bad guys. And like,
they're bad guys, everyone. They're bad guys. Like, what a childish way of talking about politics. Oh my guys, these are Trumpian American bad guys. They want to put oil in our economy. This is evil. Like, I'm actually fine with the projects for the most part that Carney's announcing. The only problem with them is he's just re-announcing old projects that were already approved. Like many of these projects, it wasn't just that they were already underway and they really didn't need the fast tracking. They literally are already on their way to being built. They do not need any fast tracking. Carney is just re-announcing old projects that are behind schedule, pretending like, oh, if they get completed in the next 6 months, it's because of me. Like it literally would have happened anyways. Other than like all the stupid green energy projects that he's dumping taxpayer money into, I'm fine with the LNG expansions and whatnot. But imagine being so out of touch as an NDP candidate. You're having to criticize your own BC NDP government, which is already delusionally left-wing, because they are not so left-wing that they just started cutting all oil and gas projects. The smug face of a man right here who has never actually had to produce anything. He makes money from being unproductive. There are so many people who work in government, work in nonprofits, activist groups, who somehow have a full-time job of just being a professional, useless person who acts as a consultant. I don't even know what Avi Lewis's background is. I am just so confident the man has never actually produced something of worth for society.
Many these years, I'm totally opposed to it. You know that companies and governments have for a long time peddled the PR spin that natural gas is a bridge to a clean energy future. The bridge is burning. It is no kind of bridge. Methane is the most potent greenhouse gas in the next 20 years when we must make this societal shift. It leaks at the fracking site. It leaks at the liquefaction site. It leaks when they're putting it on the tankers.
Very little. It just doesn't. He's just wrong. Apparently, Ohio and Pennsylvania should be on fire right now, according to Avi Lewis. But he's just a delusional granola weirdo who just thinks that government should be run for and by hippies who like sell like jam at farmers markets.
We must choose a different path. This is no bridge to the future. And we can't just oppose conservative or liberal projects like this. We need to have the bravery to say to any government of any stripe that is building new pipelines and new fossil fuel infrastructure, this shall not pass.
This is why I do not want this guy to become the NDP leader. One, I actually don't mind all the parties becoming more rational over time, but like he's so nutty, I don't think anyone would I think he would actually kill the NDP entirely. Let's go. Now I need to go over to the response from Peter McCaffrey here, which is absolutely hilarious. And he says, all the things in this shot that require oil and gas in their manufacturing process. And he's showing the lamp, the dehumidifier, rehumidifier there, or the humidifier. He has the television. He has the thing sitting on the counter, his shirt, his glasses, the little lapel mic he's wearing, the painting in the background, all of the plastic shelling for the light switches, the blankets and whatnot. These people are hypocrites. They think that food comes from the grocery store, and these people want to be in charge of government. They don't know how anything works. They simply just believe that we can have the entire economy run on rainbows and happy thoughts, and that we, like, literally, these guys have come from the show Captain Planet. They think that oil and gas is bad, must be stopped at all costs, and that somehow we're just going to make the entire economy run on granola and love. It's ridiculous. Anyways, well, that should be it for me today in this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Do all that fantastic stuff for me, and I will see you guys all next time.